I've got the vibes, it's okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Sorry about the rain. Sorry we couldn't get a hall big enough to get everybody in tonight. But that is a problem that I think we're all very happy to live with. We just come from Middlesbrough this afternoon where we had 1,000 people and all the events we're organising are amazingly well supported. Last Friday night we were in Glasgow, 1,000 people packed into the fruit market. We had music, we had entertainment, we had the speeches, and we all concluded with singing Avanti Popolare in Italian. What's wrong with that? Come on, we're international, aren't we? And so this campaign is attracting a lot of people, young and old, black and white, Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, everybody. We're come together. Now, why have we come together? Is it because we're against something or for something? And what's great about this summer is, it's the summer when we're looking at the possibilities of what we can do together, how we can make society different together, how we can make our party more representative, more democratic, more appropriate, and more in touch with people's lives. And as of today, there are over 600,000 people able to vote in this election. 600,000. I think the largest ever number of people that have voted in an open political election in Britain for one party. Now, people have come out and supported and joined in for a reason. Reason, they're very angry at the election defeat, very angry at the election defeat in 2010, and I believe many of them very disappointed at the lack of a real alternative that could and should have been put in the last general election. Now, the banking crisis of 2010 was not caused by government overspending. It was not caused by high wages paid to nurses. It was not caused by workers in the DWP. It was not caused by single parents claiming benefits. It was not caused by the homeless. It was not caused by people with disabilities. It was caused by an out-of-control banking system. It was caused by the greed of those bankers and their ludicrous bonuses that they were paid. It was caused by a subprime mortgage crisis in the USA. It was caused by a whole lot of factors completely out of control of any ordinary person in this country. It was right to take the banks into public ownership. It was right to put money there as a loan of quantitative easing. That was all good. But, and this is a very big but, when we bought those shares in RBS and all the other banks, did we control those banks? Did we say those banks are now going to be running in the public interest? Or did we merely stick those shares in a holding company for a later Chancellor of the Exchequer to sell off at a loss to his mates in the city? Sorry, we made a very big error there. Those banks should have been working in the public interest, should have been investing in high technology businesses, should have been investing in railways, in housing, in schools, in hospitals, in improving and developing our society. But instead, we accepted an austerity narrative. We accepted a narrative which has cut public expenditure, which has driven many people into unemployment or low-wage jobs or zero-hours contracts when they were formerly public sector workers. It's frozen public sector wages. It has caused a growth of inequality in our society. Don't believe this nonsense from Cameron that we're all in it together. We are not all in it together. He has presided over a process by which we are now one of the most unequal countries in Europe. The richest 5 families own the equivalent of a fifth of the wealth of the total wealth of a fifth of the rest of the population. That is the grotesque level of inequality, and it is getting worse. And so, when people say to me that the Labour Party to win an election must be economically credible, I agree. Absolutely agree. Yes, we must be economically credible. We must be credible to develop an economy that shares wealth. Develop an economy that doesn't have these grotesque levels of inequality and does not rely solely on being a financial services economy. And so when we decided that we would contest this election in the absence of a debate about policy within the Labour Party, it was extremely difficult to get on the ballot paper, as everybody knows. And I thank those Labour MPs that nominated, sometimes apparently against their better judgment, but I'm sure their better judgment will overcome their better judgment, and they'll be eventually very happy with the best judgment they could have made and ensured that we had this election. But it's also a big thank you to lots of people that got onto Twitter and Facebook and text messaging and everything else and ensured that we got on the ballot paper. And then, since then, we've had the support of unions, Unison, my own union, Unite, Communication Workers, ASLEF, RMT, TSSA, Bakers Union, Prison Officers Association and Socialist Education Association. I thank them all for their help and support. And it's fantastic the support and help we've got from them. And I also say that we have now managed to raise enough money that we've paid for a direct mail shot to every single one of the 600,000 people that are voting in this election. That has been done with difficulty, but we have raised the money as a combination of union donations, for which I'm very grateful, and also ordinary people sending in their donations. The average donation is £23.50. It shows that it's ordinary people that are involved in this campaign. We've accepted no corporate donations whatsoever. But before you get too excited, we've never offered any either. So, you know, it's kind of, so we carry on from there. And there are huge issues that we all face. I've outlined one or two of the economic areas that we've got to address. I think we need a National Investment Bank to invest in improving the infrastructure of this country. We need a programme to ensure that there is decent housing for all in this country. We need a programme that ends the internal market within the National Health Service and ends the millstone of the private finance initiative around so many hospitals in this country, and for that matter schools and other places, not just hospitals. These things and issues are very, very important. And so we need our party, the Labour Party, to be representative of the demands and wishes of ordinary people. That means that we have to have a much more democratic organisation. Yes. Our campaign, and it is our campaign, is about sharing out all these ideas. We've produced initial statements on environment, on women, on education, on housing, on environment, on Defence Diversification Agency, whole range of different issues. We did one today on what I believe to be a very strong case for bringing the railway system back into public ownership. We've done all those kind of issues, but they're all there for people to comment on. And so when some of our incredibly well-informed national commentators on the national media say that nothing we produced would ever work, I sometimes wonder if they've not had the opportunity to read the documents that they've been given, because this is a serious proposal. But if we are to achieve those serious proposals coming forward and making a difference, then there has to be a system that they can make that difference. So, no more, please, top-down policy making in the party, where an all-seeing, all-knowing, wonderful, brilliant and super intelligent leader decides everything and sends encyclicals down for the masses to joyfully accept. Why not do it the other way? Have it coming up and up and up. Ordinary people, their hopes, their aspirations, their ideas being shared by everybody else. And so people say, okay, it's all very old-fashioned what you're talking about. Well, I'll just say this. Why are we here? Because we want something different. Why do unions exist? Why does the Labour Party exist? Why do socialist ideas exist? Because people develop them out of the most appalling adversarial hardship possible in the 18th and 19th century. People who died for the right to vote, people who died to form trade unions, people who were killed in mining, engineering and many, many other accidents because of the lack of any kind of regulation, and the millions who were denied a proper education. How many great geniuses did we all lose because of those poor kids that never got an education, that were able to develop themselves? That is how our movement came about, of thinkers, of activists, of people that wanted to do something different. And we have achieved things. Yes, of course we have. We've achieved the National Health Service. We've achieved the principle for welfare state, and I'll come back to that. We've achieved the Equalities Act, Health and Safety at Work Act, the Human Rights Act. We've achieved an awful lot of things. But we've got to go forward with a number of principles. The first one is defending the principle of healthcare as a human right, so getting rid of the internal market and the profit centres within our NHS. And so it's a health service of universal first port of call for everybody, not a health service of last resort for those that can't afford to go anywhere else. That's what Cameron has in mind. But the next stage is the welfare reform bill. That's up in Parliament at the present time. I voted against the welfare reform bill, and I will continue to vote against the welfare reform bill. And I do so because it's impoverishing the poorest. I do so for another reason, and that is the direction of travel it shows. If you walked around Newcastle tonight, you'd find some people who are very poor and having a very hard time. As in every other city all across Britain, you'd find people having a really bad time. Somewhere along the line, the safety net of the welfare state has had some very big holes cut in it. Desperate people fall through those holes. Desperate people end up destitute. Desperate people end up hungry. Desperate people end up dying in the streets on cold winter's nights. And our media tell us they're all benefit scroungers. Tell us that we should not be supporting and sponsoring people who have a lifestyle of living on benefits. There's something deeply unpleasant about that kind of language. And it's deeply unpleasant when people who should know better join in that narrative. Cannot we discover our human selves, our better selves, and say, actually, we want to live in a decent society that makes sure nobody is sleeping on the streets, nobody is homeless, no child goes without a home or education. It's what the Labour movement was founded for and is all about. And so can we also have a language of humanity when we're dealing with people going through desperate circumstances? At the end of the Second World War, there were millions of displaced people from all over Europe as a result of the war, and they sought places of refuge. They came to this country, they came to other countries, they got places of refuge, and they made a fantastic contribution, as indeed have many others that have come to this country from all over the world. Our living standards are enhanced by the work of all of those people. And so, when you look at the victims of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and Mali and other places, you see large numbers of people desperately trying to survive. And then a small number end up in a camp in Calais. And our Prime Minister calls them insects, talks about a swarm of people. Cannot we have a country that is prepared to exercise humanity in the face of crises and recognise a fellow human being suffering is a human crisis and deal with people with decency and respect? It seems to me that is something that is very important for our work, for our society and our peace and our world. So, at one level, this is a campaign about the election of a leader and deputy leader of a political party. But I see it as something more than that. It's about bringing people into a serious, constructive, optimistic, human, forward-looking political debate in which we can resolve to do things very differently. We can to achieve things very differently. And so there are people that don't like what is going on. And I just remind my dear friends in the Parliamentary Labour Party, we are honoured to be members of Parliament. We have been elected by communities, we've been supported by the Labour Party to become Labour members of Parliament. But we are not the entirety of the Labour Party. We're part of the Labour Party. And I want to see real democracy And so this election gives a very strong mandate for real change within our society. So when we take on what Cameron and the Tories are actually trying to do to our society, we do so with the confidence that we are actually offering something very different. 5 more years of this government is going to result in even more grotesque levels of inequality, even more punishment of people on disability benefits and others as austerity bites deeper and deeper. More and more and deeper and bigger debts for young people leaving university and college, starting life with £50,000 worth of debt and those kind of figures. So we're saying do things a bit differently. Collect the uncollected tax, raise corporation tax by the massive figure of 0.5% in order to pay for student fees, and bring back the education maintenance allowance to give young people the chance of going into college, and stop punishing the children of larger families by taking benefits away from them, and stop the horrors and injustice of Atos and Maximus and their testing of people with disabilities insisting their return to work. And be a force for environmental sustainability, be a force for peace and human rights and justice in the world. There's an awful lot we can achieve things together. So in this summer of hope, don't give up, don't go away. Keep together and keep strong. We've brought together tens of thousands of people who are going to be actively campaigning to stop the welfare reform bill, I beg its pardon, sorry, a lapse on my part, I'll flagellate later, okay. And also defeat the trade union reform bill, because it's nothing of the kind. It's just in the old Tory tradition, going right back to the Combination Acts of saying any workers uniting together and organising together are a threat to their interests, therefore they must be stopped. We signed the International Labour Organization Convention at the end of the First World War. We're already in breach of it. We need to oppose that bill and replace it with decent workers' rights, with the right to join a trade union, with the right to take your case to an employment tribunal without being saddled with a great big bill. Basic workers' rights. Basic workers' rights, basic levels of decent pay. TUC figure of £10 an hour seems a very reasonable one to me. Those are the kind of issues that bring us together and campaign together. That is why this is such an exciting process. And so, be strong, be hopeful, be optimistic, but above all, be strong in our beliefs of how we can run our country differently and better, and how we can be an influence in the world that doesn't go to war alongside the United States every time the US president comes calling. Instead, we become a force for peace in the world. That is what's been so great. That is what has brought so many people together. I'm really sorry we're out in the street tonight. I'm even sorrier it's raining tonight. I'm even sorrier we're all going to get wet, but we can still be happy. Thank you very much indeed. Jeremy Corbyn, ladies and gentlemen.